Today we're going to look at the Sigma 17 to 50 EX DC OS lens. You see it here on the Canon SL2. Let's go! What's going on, everybody? Phil here with Photo Gear Fun. And hey, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. And if you like this video, please click that like button after you've watched it if you like it. If you don't like it, click that thumbs down. Just let me know how you're doing. Also, feel free to leave a comment. Today we're going to look at an interesting lens, the Sigma 17 to 50 f2.8 lens, which I'm going to use on the Canon SL2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through the specs. We're going to walk you through the build quality, handling, took some video, and then I'm going to list my pros and cons, and then we'll wrap up this review. It's a Sigma 17 to 50 lens made for crop sensor. The EX DC OS means it's a crop sensor and it has image stabilization. Sigma claims we get 4 stops of image stabilization, or optical stabilization as they like to call it. It's a 3.3 inch by 3.6 inch lens, so it's not terribly large. It is fairly heavy. It weighs in at 19.9 ounces or 565 grams. You've got 7 rounded aperture blades, which gives you pretty nice bokeh. You've got a aperture range of f2.8 throughout the entire zoom, so 17 and all the way through 50 millimeters up to f22. It accepts a 17 or 77 millimeter thread. There are 17 elements, 13 groups, and again, it's only for APS-C size sensors or DX size sensors. And talk a little bit about the build quality. You can see it here. It's a plastic lens. It seems like it's a high quality plastic. Seems like it might survive a couple of drops, perhaps. You can see that it has a metal lens mount here as well, and there are basically 3 switches, one for the autofocus, one for the OS or image stabilization, and then one to lock the lens in place so that you don't have any lens creep. So you can turn the lens to 17 millimeters, press that lock button, it will lock it in place, and you won't be able to move it until you unlock that button or press that unlock button down. So the build quality, I would say, is decent to pretty good. Again, it's not metal like some of the newer lenses, but it certainly seems like it would hold up pretty well. The handling, you can see, again, there are 3 switches here that you can use, one to control autofocus versus manual focus, one for the image stabilization, and then another one for the lock. And there are 2 rings on this particular lens. One is your focus ring in the front, and then your zoom ring towards the back. And the focus ring is not full-time manual focus, which means you do have to use that autofocus manual focus switch if you want to switch into manual focus. And make sure you flip that switch, otherwise the lens won't turn. The focus ring will not turn, and you'll damage your lens if you don't flip that switch over to manual focus. It does have that OS on and off switch, so if you're on a tripod, you might want to turn the image stabilization off. It's also got that lock, which is kind of neat. I don't know if this would really creep. The zoom ring feels kind of stiff, but it might after a while start to wear out. So it's nice that you have that lock. And the zoom rings, it's a little bit stiff, but I think I like the amount of tension, so I think it's well dampened. It doesn't turn very smoothly, and that might, with age, might get a little bit better, but it's going to make it tough if you're zooming in on video to kind of get those smooth zooms with something like maybe a power lens or a power zoom that you might have. So maybe with age that will wear in a little bit and get smoother, but right now it's not very smooth. It's kind of jerky. So overall, I think the handling is pretty good. It's, you know, it's got the switches. I do like the switches rather than having to go into the camera and turn the settings on for autofocus and image stabilization in the camera. It just makes it easier. There's one less thing that you have to do to go into the camera. You can feel it. It's tactile. You can feel those switches. You can move those switches around. And after a while, you get to know where those switches are without too much effort. I want to show you a couple of videos here. One is a vlog style video, and I want you to pay attention to a couple or a few things. One is the autofocus speed, the autofocus accuracy, and then listen to the autofocus noise and see if you think that that's an issue. I'm also going to show you a video of just a butterfly bush bud kind of just moving a little bit in the breeze. So we'll go ahead and show you those videos, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about the photo aspects of the lens. Okay, this is vlog style, f2.8 aperture. Let me know if you can hear the focus noise from the focus motor. So it's a fairly noisy motor. We're just using the onboard microphones. I want to see if you can hear that. And it's fairly quiet, and then listen as I walk around and see if you can hear it. And this is at 17 millimeters, as wide as it goes. See if you can hear it in a normal situation, although these rocks are pretty noisy. Seems to be pretty good autofocus. Pretty fast, fairly smooth, definitely noisy. Let me know what you think of the autofocus noise. This is at f2.8, 1/50th of a second. And we are shooting at 30p, 1080, 30p. Here's some video. Just a slight breeze here. See again if you can hear the autofocus noise. It's 1080p, 30. So that was the video. You can definitely hear that there's autofocus noise. So if you're going to use this for vlogging, if you're in a fairly noisy situation, it might not be noticeable, but I think you probably noticed it, especially on that clip where there was nothing going on with the butterfly bush, that it's noisy autofocus. And again, you might not notice it if you're in a situation where there's a lot of other background noise, but something to consider, not just for video, for vlogging, but also in situations where you might have to be quiet and you don't want to make a lot of noise. That autofocus is fairly noisy. But I took some photos of our friend Fred the spider, who's building a nice nest out there for himself, a web out there. So we took some pictures at f2.8, f5.6, and f8, just to show you the depth of field and show you how this things look. So here's one at f2.8. I focused on the body here so you can see the depth of field at f2.8. You can see that background is fairly blown out, and the rest of the spider is really not in focus. And here's f5.6. At f5.6, you can see I focused on the head on this one instead of the body, but you can see there's definitely more in focus. You can see a little bit more of that siding behind the spider, and that's starting to come into focus. Notice the shutter speeds too. All the shutter speeds up there. The shutter speeds are changing, and Sigma claims that this is 4 stops of image stabilization. At f8, we're at 1/20th of a second, and that's probably about the maximum that I can handhold this particular lens at 50 millimeters. These were all taken at 50 millimeters. So everybody's a little bit different with their camera technique. I don't have the best technique, but I took 3 shots at f8, and this was the one that was the most in focus. The other 2 were fairly blurry, so it's about a 33% hit rate for me at f8. But I do like the color of the photos. I like the clarity. I like the focus seems to be accurate. It seems to be quick. It seems like it's a really good lens. Contrast is good. It does come with a lens hood, so if you're out in the sun, you can use that lens hood, and that should help with contrast and also with flaring. Who is this lens for? It's for a couple types of people. Actually, maybe everybody. It's a great focal range, 17 to 50, which is roughly the equivalent of a 24 to 70. So it's a great walk around lens. It's great for landscape at the wide end. You can get the 17 or roughly 24 or 25 millimeter equivalent. And then you can go up to 50 millimeters, which is roughly 70 or 75 millimeters or so. So you have really useful focal range. It's that f2.8 aperture throughout the entire range is really nice. You can use this for portraits at f2.8, and you could really get that blown out background. And you could see in some of those photos where the background was definitely defocused a lot more than it was at f5.6 or f8. I really think this is a great all-around lens. And the kicker is it was only $309, so it was on sale, although I think that might be a permanent price drop. I got this one on Amazon for $309. Pros and cons. The pros, f2.8 all the way through the entire zoom range. The price is amazing at $300. I don't think you find a better lens. And you can actually take this from your Canon and adapt it to Sony, which I'm going to do with my a6500, so that I have a really nice portrait lens, f2.8 wide aperture lens for my Sony camera that will have autofocus with the MC11 adapter. The autofocus seems to be good. It seems to be fast. It seems to be accurate. The contrast is great. The colors are great. Again, all around, it's just what I consider to be a really nice all-around lens. It also accepts 77mm thread, so if you want to use this for landscape shooting and you want to put some filters on it, 77mm is a fairly common thread at size, and it probably won't cost you all that much. So what are the cons? Well, the autofocus is really noisy. Again, that might not be a deal breaker. In fact, it's not for me. I'm going to keep this lens no matter what. It's going to be a great portrait and landscape lens. It is a little bit on the heavy side. It does become just a little bit unbalanced. It becomes a little bit front heavy on the Canon SL2. If you have a Canon 70D or 80D, probably balance very, very nicely. And that zoom ring doesn't really move very smoothly. Although again, with age, that might come to be a little bit better, but it's certainly not ever going to be a really smooth zoom for video. This is Phil with Photo Gear Fun. I really hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, please leave a comment below. Remember to like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you think. I'm really interested in hearing what you think. I'm working hard on these videos, trying to make sure that I provide the best information in the most entertaining way. So go out there and have your photo gear fun. We'll see you again in the next video.